Number 13. Gabrielle Canales. In a dashcam video that went viral back in 2017, a young woman was seen reaching forward from the back seat of her Uber driver's car and stealing money straight out of his tip jar. A few people immediately suspected that the incident was staged, but Uber reportedly confirmed that it wasn't to BuzzFeed News. The thief in question, later identified as 18-year-old Gabrielle Canales from Long Island, New York, also spoke with BuzzFeed. She admitted to taking the money and said that the incident happened months earlier. While at least one other news outlet described Canales as being remorseless for her actions, she told BuzzFeed that she immediately regretted taking the cash and acknowledged that what she did was immature. She said that she repaid the driver by tipping him $5 extra for the amount she took, in addition to the other tip she gave him for the ride. Canales went on to explain that the reason she seemed to be mocking the incident in several of her posts was because the situation was long over and had already been taken care of. Simply put, she felt like people were digging up something that was long dead and done, and which she'd paid her dues for. She also said that she didn't need the video to go viral for her to learn her lesson, since she'd already paid the driver back before the internet even knew what had happened. And while it's impossible to prove exactly how much cash Canales took from the tip jar, anyone who's not satisfied with her story about paying the money back can rest easy knowing that her Uber account was suspended indefinitely. Number 12. Costumed creeps terrorize Colorado neighborhood. In 2022, a Colorado couple was walking to their house in the Denver suburb of Wheat Ridge when they suddenly noticed that they were being followed by a man and a woman in a car who seemed to be wearing wigs. As soon as they got to their house, the pair rushed toward the front door as a man and a woman got out of their SUV and ran after them. Frightening doorbell camera footage was captured of the moment the homeowners slammed their front door right in time to stop the suspects from coming inside, as the suspicious man drew a handgun and pointed it at the innocent victims. Police released the video to the public in hopes that someone would eventually be able to help identify the disguised suspects. Shortly after the failed home invasion, the pair allegedly robbed another person at gunpoint. The male suspect was arrested a few days later, but authorities declined to publicly reveal his name, and the outcome of his criminal case is not clear. It's also unknown whether the female suspect was ever captured and brought to justice. Number 11. Chicago daytime robbery. An elderly woman in Chicago was walking with her dog on the city's north side one morning in December 2022 when a man got out of a blue Honda CR-V and demanded she give him her belongings at gunpoint. He snatched the 70-year-old victim's purse in broad daylight before getting back into his car and speeding off. The woman's son-in-law, 32-year-old Mike Walker, told Fox News that it's weird to not feel safe in one's own neighborhood. He praised his mother-in-law for handling the situation with composure and said that she was even able to joke about how many years she'd lived without ever having a gun pointed in her face. Walker said that the victim was shocked, but in good spirits after the traumatizing ordeal. When the story first broke, no arrests had been made and the incident was under investigation. There have been no updates since, indicating that the perpetrator is still at large. Unfortunately, the robbery came during what seems to be an ever-increasing spike in violent crime throughout Chicago, which reflects an even larger trend that has become especially clear in recent years since the COVID-19 pandemic. Number 10. Eric Van Vleet. In what was later described as an unprovoked ambush in San Diego's Gaslamp Quarter neighborhood, a long-haired man wearing a Jesus costume sucker-punched a police officer during a 2019 Halloween street festival. The brazen act was caught on surveillance footage, which showed the suspect approaching the officer as he tried to break up an unrelated fight at about 1 o'clock in the morning. Officer Ben Hall and his partner, Kristen Robinson, were arresting a suspect who allegedly punched his girlfriend during the fight. According to authorities, the man dressed as Jesus shouted anti-police rhetoric before he attacked Officer Hall. He then seamlessly slipped into the crowd and left the scene in a ride-sharing car. Hall received some stitches for a laceration and was treated for concussion-like symptoms and other injuries which put him out of work for over a week. In the meantime, the police identified the suspect as 24-year-old Eric Van Vleet with help from surveillance footage, witness statements, and even bar tabs. He was arrested in Idaho about 4 days after the incident and was indicted for resisting arrest and felony battery on an officer. Van Vleet was extradited to San Diego, where he pleaded not guilty to the charges and was held in custody depending on the outcome of the case. During a search of the defendant's house in La Jolla, police discovered part of the Jesus costume he was wearing on the night in question. At the time of his arrest, Van Vleet was a successful businessman with no previous criminal history. His defense attorney argued in court that law enforcement may have identified the wrong suspect and that his client had not even been drinking on the night of the attack. But Van Vleet ultimately decided to take responsibility for what he'd done and pleaded guilty to one felony count of battery on a peace officer resulting in injury. He offered a tearful apology at his sentencing and was ordered to serve 270 days of weekend jail time. Hall spoke up at the hearing, saying that he didn't hold any grudges against Van Vleet, but that he fully believed in accountability and hoped the sentence would show that police are protected by the same laws they enforce for civilians. Number 9. William Nolan. 64-year-old Debbie Waring-Jones was grateful that her neighbors were willing to feed her cats and water her flowers while she was away during her weekly trips from her house in Birmingham, England to Nottingham. She trusted William Nolan and his wife for years, so she was shocked in 2020 when she found secret listening devices attached to the bottom of her coffee table and the headboard of her bed. In an attempt to identify the culprit, she installed several security cameras at her home and waited for someone to come and retrieve the hidden devices. Debbie decided to make her regular trip to Nottingham to see her partner and watch from afar as the cameras caught footage of Nolan collecting the audio bugs. Before turning to law enforcement, Debbie tried speaking with Nolan. He claimed he had no idea what she was talking about, so she had her adult son confront him instead. Debbie then called the police and Nolan was arrested for the breach of privacy. He ultimately pleaded guilty to one count of stalking without fear, alarm, or distress and received a 15-month jail sentence. During his sentencing, the judge described the case as one of the most serious examples of stalking he'd ever seen in his career. The ordeal left Debbie feeling both betrayed and scared. She'd known Nolan and his wife for 30 years and described them as nice, normal, likable people whom she trusted wholeheartedly. After discovering the listening devices, she just couldn't shake the fear that her house could still be bugged. She literally lost sleep over it. In the aftermath of the case, she made it her new mission to educate people on the dangers related to stalking. The main lesson she wants to pass along is simply that you can't fully trust anyone. Most people have trust issues on some level. Number 8. Matthew Ward. In June 2021, Tennessee resident Ilya Kovalchuk and his pregnant wife Macy were driving along Interstate 24 in Murfreesboro when a red pickup truck started tailgating them alarmingly close. Kovalchuk could tell that the driver was yelling at him to slow down, which was surprising because he was already driving carefully because his wife was pregnant. As he tried putting a bit of distance between his car and the pursuing truck, the irate driver flashed a police badge. Suspecting that the badge was fake, Kovalchuk flipped his middle finger up at the man and continued trying to get away from the reckless truck. But the man continued to follow Ilya and Macy, and the couple ultimately did decide to pull over to avoid an accident thanks to the other driver's unsafe behavior. The truck also pulled over, and the man behind the wheel got out of the vehicle with his badge and gun in hand. Ilya also got out of his car, marking the start of a terrifying face-off that attracted a growing crowd of concerned drivers who stopped along the road to record the fight. Macy stood by helplessly at a distance, scared that the man would accidentally shoot her if she tried to intervene. Between the man's erratic behavior and the out-of-state license plates on his truck, Ilya was unconvinced he was a real cop. Disturbing cell phone footage taken by several witnesses showed the angry driver identifying himself as an off-duty officer. Ilya said that the man had no right to pull him over if he was off-duty, which is technically true, but the situation only escalated from that point. Later identified as 31-year-old Tennessee police officer Matthew Ward, the man continued pointing his gun at Ilya while angrily screaming that he was on duty 24/7. Ilya stayed impressively calm as he peacefully refused to follow Ward's repeated orders to get on the ground. He later told the ID channel series Road Rage that Ward was so close to him he could see the bullet inside the gun's barrel. By then, bystanders had already started yelling at Ward to take his finger off the gun's trigger, but he refused to listen to their pleas. Witnesses also called 911. The confrontation finally ended once Murfreesboro police arrived. Ward was charged with aggravated assault and resigned from the Deschutes police force not long after this incident. As news of the altercation spread, reporters uncovered a disturbing paper trail of past incidents involving Ward's unpredictable temper. He had even been kicked out of a police training academy for allegedly threatening to kill another colleague. Traumatized by the events of that day, the Kowalchuks sued Ward and the city of Deshert for emotional distress and were given a $1 million payout for their suffering. Number 7. Machete-wielding madness in San Jose. Jerry Gonzalez was working as a food delivery driver in San Jose, California one night in 2023 when he accidentally got lost while trying to find an address. As he drove around helplessly looking for the residence, a BMW SUV rushed up behind him and started laying on their horn. Jerry's front and rear dashcams were filming as the impatient driver continued honking and even began flashing their high beams in an attempt to get him to drive a bit faster. Annoyed by the driver's desire to speed in a residential area, Jerry decided to tap his brakes. The BMW then peeled around him and stopped in the middle of the road, giving Jerry no choice but to also stop. A man then got out of the SUV, retrieved a machete from the trunk, and charged straight at Jerry, who suddenly realized he was in a life-threatening situation. Terrified by the thought of not making it home to his loving family, Jerry threw his car into reverse and tried to maneuver his way to safety while avoiding oncoming traffic. As he pulled away, the suspect smashed his window. By the time Jerry was able to safely pull out his phone and call 911, the suspect had already gotten back into his SUV and sped away from the scene. Determined to make sure that the driver was held accountable, Jerry started following the BMW while updating the 911 dispatcher about the suspect's location. He kept a safe distance from the vehicle as he followed the driver into a nearby apartment complex. The angry driver stopped in the parking lot and left his vehicle with the machete in hand, only to get back into the SUV and drive off once again. No longer willing to put his safety on the line, Jerry turned his dashcam footage over to law enforcement. The driver and his license plate were clearly visible in the video, yet his identity remains a mystery and no arrests have been made in the case. Number 6. Mahamad Danso. 26-year-old Jamie Coots was walking in downtown Vancouver, British Columbia in March 2021 when she started to suspect that a strange man was following her. The suspect was wearing a baseball cap under the hood of his coat, as well as a COVID mask, so Jamie couldn't get a good look at his face. But she wanted to record what was happening in case she actually was being stalked, so she quickly snapped a photo of the man with her cell phone. Once Jamie was sure that the suspect was following her, she turned around and told him he was walking way too close to her. He didn't say a word in response and just continued to follow the young woman, so she hit the record button on her phone and started filming herself as the man trailed not far behind her. Jamie didn't want the stalker to know where she lived, so she didn't go home. Sadly, she was also afraid to call the police because she was afraid the man would react violently. She hoped that by recording him, she would get the guy to go away, but the suspect was unfazed and continued following her even after she made it abundantly clear that her camera was rolling. Even as Jamie picked up her pace and walked right through a red light, the creep stayed close behind her. She walked so fast that she began to sweat, and the suspect could also be seen wiping sweat off of his own face as he matched her speed. The man followed Jamie for over a half hour as she grew more and more concerned for her safety and contemplated her next move. She decided to go to a nearby skate park where she knew there'd be a lot of people and asked a group of strangers if she could sit down with them. They picked up on what was going on and welcomed Jamie to join them. Jamie was certain that the stalker would go away at this point, but he stood nearby for several more minutes before finally leaving. After waiting to make sure the man was truly gone, she walked home, worried the entire time that the suspect would reappear. She filed a police report and posted the cell phone footage on social media to warn others about him. To her shock, a large number of people responded to her post with stories about similar incidents involving the same man, including 4 women who said that they'd been stalked by him recently. One of them was Jamie's friend, Nanny Gonzalez, who said she managed to throw the guy off her trail when she noticed he was following her. Several viewers pointed out things in the video that Jamie hadn't noticed, including the stalker seeming to grab an object out of his pocket. A few days after the footage went viral online, authorities charged 35-year-old Mahamad with criminal harassment. He already had a lengthy criminal history dating all the way back to 2015 and has been arrested a few more times since the incident involving Jamie. In September 2022, Majidpour was accused of setting someone's car on fire and hitting a Vietnamese-Canadian woman over the head, while telling her in a racist fit to go back to China. Just weeks later, he was caught stealing hundreds of dollars worth of clothes from an H&M just hours after being released from custody for yet another incident. As of May 2023, Majidpour had at least 30 convictions under his belt for crimes including assault with a weapon, and making threats. He pleaded guilty to 11 of these random assaults in recent years, drawing widespread criticism over British Columbia's catch and release policy of letting the criminally accused walk free until their trial. Majidpour's cousin told the Globe and Mail that the chronic offender lost his mind after being down on his luck and getting into hard drugs. The family has reportedly tried to help him recover, but to no avail, which doesn't bode well for the criminal justice system's compassionate approach to his multitude of cases. Number 5. The Bucktown Creeper. Jack McKercher and his girlfriend Jordan were shocked when they woke up one morning in 2016 and found Jordan's purse missing from their home in Chicago's Bucktown neighborhood. The couple had fallen asleep in the living room while doing laundry after going out for dinner that night, and Jack initially thought that Jordan had left her purse at the restaurant. To prove that Jordan didn't bring the purse home, he reviewed footage from surveillance cameras inside their home, only to discover in the most terrifying way imaginable that he was dead wrong. The video showed a man in a hooded sweatshirt coming out of an upstairs room and standing still at the top of the couple's staircase for over 15 minutes straight as he watched them sleeping peacefully. He finally slipped back into an upstairs room and left the house a few moments before Jack and Jordan woke up and went to their bedroom to keep sleeping. The intruder had snuck into and out of the house through the couple's unlocked third-story bedroom balcony, which they'd never expected to happen because of how high up the entrance was. They showed the disturbing footage to the police, who seemed just as unnerved by the clip as the victims themselves. Since the man's hoodie overshadowed his face the entire time, his identity remained a mystery. The video soon went viral, with social media users nicknaming the intruder the Bucktown Creeper. Many believed that the man was probably responsible for a recent string of unsolved burglaries in the neighborhood. He also resembled a suspect who'd been seen going door to door throughout the area in search of unlocked homes. A few days after the break-in at McKercher's house, police arrested a person of interest wearing an outfit matching the suspect's description, but he was eventually released, and nobody has ever been charged in connection to the unsolved break-ins. In the absence of justice, community members worked together to set up a patrol in the neighborhood at night and ensure that Bucktown stays a safe place to live. Number 4. Priscilla Prento. Los Angeles resident Mark Wheatley was riding his bike to work during the morning rush in 2017 when the driver of a black SUV started tailgating him. He was in the designated lane for bike riders, but the angry motorist didn't seem to care as she laid on her horn. Sensing the anger, Mark hit the record button on his helmet camera and told the woman behind the wheel of the SUV to smile since she was on video. She then exited the vehicle and accused Mark of impeding traffic, but he refused to back down as he yelled that he was obeying traffic laws and called the woman a effing moron. Mark's anger was understandable, considering how cyclists are not always treated kindly by conventional drivers. After the brief exchange of words, he assumed the confrontation was over and continued his ride, only to be repeatedly cut off again and again by the woman in the SUV. He was nearly run off the road as he maneuvered around the vehicle and tried to get away from the crazy driver. 10 minutes into the chase, the SUV cut Mark off from the right-hand side and slammed on the brakes, basically trapping him between the vehicle and another car sitting in traffic to the left. As he tried squeezing through the small amount of space between the two cars, Mark's bike handle scraped against the SUV, prompting the enraged woman to pull over to the side of the road. She exited the SUV and rushed at him in a tantrum, accusing him of damaging her vehicle. Mark tried to reason with her, but she didn't want to hear about how he'd been trying to escape her wrath the entire time she was chasing after him. She slapped Mark with such force that she tumbled backwards into the sidewalk, which should have been her cue to calm down and finally act civilized. But her destructive rage continued as she retrieved what looked like a metal paper towel holder out of her SUV. Bystanders intervened and stopped the woman from hitting Mark as he backed away in shock at her behavior. He flagged down a nearby cop, and the woman, Priscilla Prento, was arrested for battery. She pleaded guilty to the charge and was ordered to perform 450 hours of community service, which was likely a cakewalk compared to the humiliation she endured after Mark went public with his story and released his helmet cam footage. Number 3. Russell Williams. As a high-ranking officer for the Canadian Air Force, Russell Williams was a shining pillar of his community. He was highly educated, had a top security clearance, commanded the country's biggest Air Force base, and at one point was even responsible for transporting British royalty. In 2008, Williams started to act on some of his secret desires. But instead of doing it legally, he broke into houses to fulfill his strange fetish for women's underwear. Nobody in the small Ontario town where he lived knew who the thief was, but it happened often enough that people got used to having their entire undergarment collections disappear. During his break-ins, Williams sometimes stuck around long enough to try things on and take pictures of himself wearing the items with his digital camera. He also did this at home, where he kept a growing collection organized and catalogued. On at least 2 separate occasions, he burned the garments because he was accumulating too many to safely hide them from his wife. Williams escalated his disturbing behavior in 2009 when he violently assaulted 2 women inside their homes. A few months later, he killed fellow Air Force members Corporal Marie-France Comeau. In 2010, Williams murdered a 27-year-old single mom named Jessica Lloyd. Unable to find her body, law enforcement classified her as a missing person while they tried to explain the sudden increase in violent crime. Until then, nobody suspected Williams of being responsible for the crimes. In fact, another neighbor had fallen under suspicion, and although he was cleared of any wrongdoing, his reputation suffered greatly. Investigators finally tied the crimes to Williams through tire treads that were left behind at the scene of Jessica Lloyd's murder. The pattern of the treads was from a highly unusual tire, and it matched perfectly with Williams' Pathfinder. He was quickly summoned to the police station for questioning and began confessing after being presented with the tire tread evidence. He also started to open up after realizing there was no talking his way out of the problems he'd created for himself. By owning up to his actions and not forcing investigators to drag out the truth, the disgraced former commander felt it would make the situation easier on his wife, who knew nothing of his crimes. While giving his confession, Williams admitted that he killed Lloyd because she'd seen his face and knew who was breaking into homes on a regular basis. He revealed the location of Lloyd's body and told investigators where they could find even more evidence at his home. While searching through his electronic devices, detectives came across thousands upon thousands of photos of Williams wearing stolen underwear. The disgraced former officer was hit with too many criminal charges to list. He went from being one of the Canadian military's most respected leaders to its biggest disgrace literally overnight. The case made headlines around the world. Williams pleaded guilty to almost 90 counts, including Lloyd's murder, Comeau's murder, breaking and entering, forcible confinement, assault, and more. He received 2 life sentences, an 82-year sentence, and 4 10-year sentences, which are running concurrently. While he could technically be paroled after serving 25 years, a prosecutor said it would be unlikely given the nature of his many crimes. In a display of its disapproval of the horrific crimes Williams committed, the Canadian Air Force burned his old uniform, cut up his medals, and even crushed his car. Number 2. Joshua James King. After finishing up her work as a dog walker one day in September 2020, 29-year-old Andrea Puerta boarded a Metro mover on Miami's elevated commuter train line. She sat alone in the back of an empty car and used it as an opportunity to relax a little after a long day. A surveillance camera was rolling as a large man went inside the car at one of the stops and started punching Andrea in the face. He attacked the much smaller woman so viciously that she had almost no opportunity to run away or defend herself from his repeated blows to her head. Between punches, the man flung Andrea across the train and slammed her against the floor, seats, and walls. Andrea was seen covering her face in an attempt to shield herself from her attacker, but it did little to protect her as he continued hitting her square in the face with a closed fist. She had never met the man before this and had no idea why he was hurting her. At one point, the attacker stopped his attack on Andrea and apologized, only to resume the assault just a few moments later. After enduring the beatdown for about a minute straight, Andrea finally saw a chance to escape as the train pulled into a station. She stumbled off the car in a daze from receiving a multitude of blows to the head and called 911. Andrea soon learned that she was suffering from a concussion, a broken rib, a black eye, a fractured jaw, and other minor injuries. As she spoke with a dispatcher, she saw flashing police lights 2 stations down from where she got off the train. The attacker, 25-year-old Joshua James King, was being arrested by the police after assaulting 2 other innocent passengers. King was charged with aggravated battery, but because he had no prior criminal record, he walked free without bail while waiting for his next court date. In the meantime, the surveillance footage of the attack on Andrea went viral, sparking outrage at the court's decision to free King. Just hours before the attacks, King disappeared from his home in Perry, Florida. His family reportedly told police officers that he'd recently shown concerning behavioral changes. King's truck was found abandoned and running outside Miami City Hall 2 days later, by which point the court had already ordered for him to undergo a mental evaluation. Authorities have declined to inform the public about the outcome of this case, but Andrea has made it her mission to live her best life and show King that he did not destroy her spirit. And now for number 1. But if you want to hear more bizarre and crazy stories, stay tuned after the video for some more content. Number 1. Jeffrey Heret. In late 2023, a woman in Biola, California, noticed a man that she'd never seen before opening her neighbor's gate and letting their dog out. Knowing the neighbor's teenage daughter was home by herself and fearing for the girl's safety, the woman went outside and confronted the man. Later identified as Jeffrey Heret, he allegedly claimed that he was a salesman and wanted to give the homeowners a gift, which turned out to be a plastic bag full of laundry detergent pods. Heret wasn't breaking any laws, but he acted strangely enough for the mother of the teenager to post home surveillance footage of her neighbor's interaction with the man on social media. Local news outlets also reported on the video, prompting several people to come forward with claims that they'd experienced similar bizarre encounters with Heret. He was often seen walking his cat, leading to suspicions that he was somehow trying to lure dog owners. Accusations of him being a serial stalker also popped up. Shortly after the incident in Biola, Fresno police were called twice in one day to deal with incidents involving Heret. One resident reported seeing him sleeping in his car in a residential area at 3 in the morning, while another person claimed that Heret harassed multiple women while loitering outside a Home Depot. Law enforcement spoke with Heret multiple times, but did not feel that they had enough reason to make an arrest. In an exclusive phone interview with Fox 26 News, Heret denied being a creep. He described himself simply as a friendly, approachable, and outgoing Christian man, and said that he travels the country as part of his sales job. A Google search of Heret shows that he has faced stalking and harassment allegations in at least 8 states, including California, Arkansas, Idaho, Nevada, South Carolina, and Pennsylvania. In 2006, he was charged with felony stalking in Clearwater County, Idaho, after allegedly approaching a group of women and asking them inappropriate questions. 5 years later, in 2011, Heret was charged with stalking in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, after serving time in state prison for stalking 2 women as well as assaulting 2 police officers. The victim claimed that Heret stalked her during church and even followed her to her job on multiple occasions. In early 2018, a 19-year-old Arkansas woman accused Heret of approaching her in a car while she was out jogging. She said that she told Heret she didn't want to talk and accused him of blocking her with his vehicle. The teen quickly ran away, only to notice the same man sitting outside her apartment the next day. A few days after this, Heret allegedly confronted her at a restaurant in town. These are just a few of the seemingly countless cases involving stalking allegations against Heret that have been made over the years. During his interview with Fox 26 in late 2023, he chalked some of the more recent incidents up to simple misunderstandings and talked in circles about his work in the sales industry while failing to provide convincing details that he is actually a legitimate salesperson. Heret avoided diving into detail about his criminal history and said that the public has no reason to be afraid of him. He blamed his large stature and the way people are these days as reasons for why some women might have feared him enough to call the police. The good news is that the unwanted publicity Heret received drove him out of Fresno, but there's unfortunately a good chance that he's making people uncomfortable elsewhere, and that he'll continue to do so until the next time he strikes.
8. Everett Beauregard. In September 2022, a seemingly normal event took a horrific turn when terrifying surveillance footage caught a random and unprovoked attack. The target was a recent Temple University graduate in Philadelphia, Everett Beauregard, a 23-year-old who had experience interning for Congressman Brendan Boyle, was tragically shot in the neck at point-blank range as he was walking home from a friend's house after riding the train. At first, the Philadelphia police thought the incident might have been a botched robbery attempt. But as the investigation quickly unfolded, they came to the chilling realization that Beauregard had actually been selected as a target. The identity of the killer remains unknown to this day, leaving investigators no clear motive for this senseless attack. Surveillance footage released by the authorities revealed a suspect that was most likely male with a slim build, dressed in black pants, a dark hoodie, and a medical-grade mask. The footage picked up on the tension as the suspect paced along 35th Street between Hamilton and Spring Garden Streets, with one hand hiding a firearm in his pocket and the other nervously fidgeting with the weapon. As he approached Spring Garden Street, the suspect paused for a second to glance behind him, before quickly turning back along the block where he met Beauregard midway. Tragically, as Beauregard passed the stoop of a townhouse, the suspect turned and fired a shot into the back of the young graduate's neck. The video caught the haunting sound of gunshots, and as Beauregard fell to the ground, the killer fled, firing another shot as he passed the fatally wounded victim. The first shot had a devastating impact, severing Beauregard's spinal cord and basically leaving him with no chance of survival. In response to this crime, Philadelphia authorities offered a $20,000 reward for any information leading to the arrest and conviction of the unknown gunman. Beauregard's alma mater, Temple University, mourned the loss of their bright and promising graduate, publicly expressing deep sadness over the tragic death. Who'd worked closely with Beauregard during his past campaign, went on Facebook to denounce the pervasive issue of rising gun violence in the country. He described Everett as a dedicated and purpose-driven young man with a promising future, emphasizing the profound loss that his senseless death departed. It's now 2023, and there's still no updates on who the perpetrator of this crime was, so it's likely that the suspect is still at large and has managed to avoid arrest. 7. Caught on camera. In November 2012, an ordinary day took a dark turn in Plaistow, East London, when 35-year-old Michael Aode committed a series of brutal assaults that left 2 women unconscious on the ground. Aode was later sentenced to 4 years in jail for his violent crimes. The shocking attacks were captured on CCTV footage, revealing the randomness of Aode's actions. On November 13th, he ran up behind a 16-year-old girl on High Street and delivered a brutal punch to her head. The force of the blow made the teenager fall to the ground, resulting in 3 of her teeth getting broken. A year earlier, Aode assaulted a university student at Plaistow Tube Station, also hitting her in the head. This victim, identified as Daniela Loot, was taken to the hospital with a chipped tooth. During the sentencing, which took place at Inner London Crown Court, Judge Roger Chappell characterized Aode's actions as vicious, unprovoked attacks on young, lone females. He emphasized the gravity of the assaults by noting that a single blow rendered both victims unconscious. The CCTV footage vividly portrayed the horrifying violence of these 2 crimes. Aode, who was originally from Nigeria, followed the 16-year-old girl for about 800 meters before carrying out his attack. In court, the prosecutor Joel Smith revealed that Aode claimed that the girl had looked at him in a rude way, and that he couldn't sit by and take an insult from a little person like that. Aode, who'd ingested 3 or 4 cannabis joints and a cup of vodka right before the attack, expressed in court that he had no intentions of causing serious harm to either of his victims. But he ultimately pleaded guilty to 2 counts of assault causing actual bodily harm, and 1 count of possessing cannabis when the drug was located at his residence. The sentencing saw Aode given a 4-year prison term for the attack on the teenager and an extra 19 months for assaulting the student. These sentences were meant to be served concurrently, with no separate penalty given for the cannabis charge. 6. Todd Or. In September 2022, what started off as a routine day of hiking in the Montana mountains turned into a frightening ordeal for Todd Or, who faced not 1, but 2 bear attacks. Or, an experienced hiker, followed his usual safety precautions, carrying bear spray and periodically shouting, "Hey bear," every so often to alert any wildlife of his presence. Initially, he saw a mother grizzly bear with her 2 cubs and thought that their retreat into the woods indicated a healthy fear of humans. But the situation took a dark turn when the female bear circled back around and approached him from behind his back. Or tried to use his bear spray, but it was already too late. The bear quickly charged at him, biting his right arm 5 or so times before leaving. In a video filmed right after the first attack, Or's face was covered in blood as he recounted the frightening encounter on camera. He'd walked 3 miles to get back to safety, but planned to go to the hospital. Little did he know, the ordeal still wasn't over. As he continued on with his journey, Or unexpectedly encountered the same grizzly and her cubs once again. This time, the bear knocked him over, and in a desperate bid to protect himself, Or raised his hands up high to shield his face and neck. The bear viciously bit into his right arm about 25 times in a blur of terrifying aggression. Despite the ordeal, Or was lucky that his legs remained unharmed, allowing him to walk to the closest hospital. Once there, doctors spent 7 hours stitching him up, ultimately saving his life. Reflecting back on his experience, Todd Or now shares valuable advice for fellow hikers at every opportunity he can get. He emphasizes the importance of making noise to signal your arrival and presence to wildlife. He also suggests practicing the use of bear spray before leaving for hikes. 5. Mahamad Danso. In November 2022, a tragic incident unfolded at Bagel's Bakery in Brooklyn, resulting in the discovery of the deceased body of Mahamad Danso, a 33-year-old bakery worker. The discovery happened at 8:45 a.m. when Danso was spotted inside a walk-in freezer, where he'd gotten trapped while cleaning it the night before at about 3:00 a.m., according to police officers. Bagel's Bakery has a rich history. They were originally founded in Krakow, Poland, back in 1934 by the Bagel family. During the Nazi invasion during World War II, the bakery played a humanitarian role by giving bread to those affected by the conflict and facing severe hunger. Eventually, the bakery relocated to New York City, specifically the Lower East Side, becoming a beloved establishment in the community. Danso, an immigrant from Africa who'd worked at the bakery for 3 months, accidentally locked himself inside the freezer. The bakery, which is located in the heart of Brooklyn, is famous for its freshly baked goods. Notably, its black and white cookies that have a history dating back to 1949. A police source likened the bakery's freezer to a meat locker and claimed that long-term exposure would be deadly. But luckily, no signs of trauma were found on Danso's body. David Greenberger, the company's manager, conveyed the bakery's sorrow over the tragic accident, extending sincere condolences to Danso's family. He also mentioned that grief counselors were on site to support both the family and other employees during this challenging time. Greenberger also emphasized their cooperation with ongoing investigations and declined to make any further comments. 4. Daniela Loot. In August 2021, what should have been a regular day for Mitchell Taylor and Philip Loot tragically turned into a nightmare. The two were parents to their beloved daughter Daniela, a 25-year-old with a positive and angelic soul who had bright dreams and aspirations. She was known for her inspiring determination, beginning with her 10-year tenure as a club soccer player. In high school, Daniela shifted her focus to studying, where she excelled without needing any extra prodding to finish her homework. Her unwavering goal was to one day become a nurse practitioner, and she hoped to build deep connections with her patients. Starting with her early education at Health Careers High School, Daniela was also a member of the school choir and had a strong sense of humor that could light up any room she entered. But on that fateful day in August, her life took a tragic wrong turn. At around 2:30 a.m., Daniela and another woman, Diana Rubio, were killed in a head-on car crash. The accident happened when a man named Ricardo Rodriguez allegedly drove the wrong way on the highway at 90 miles per hour, 145 kilometers per hour, and crashed into the victim's vehicle at I-35 and Walsham Road. The grief-stricken parents remember the devastating moment when they received the news, struggling to comprehend how someone as vibrant as Daniela could be taken from them so quickly. They expressed their sorrow and profound anguish, with Mitchell wishing it had been the responsible party, Rodriguez, who lost his life instead of their daughter. Despite their overwhelming grief, Daniela's family hopes to shed light on the dangers of driving while under the influence. They want people to remember Daniela and Diana, emphasizing that these tragedies are completely preventable. They urge individuals to make responsible decisions on the road. In memory of Daniela Loot, the family planned to hold a memorial at the crash site, a reminder that even on a seemingly normal day, the consequences of irresponsible actions can shatter lives. 3. World's most dangerous sport. In May 2023, an ordinary day took a tragic turn when junior rider Hannah Surus, aged 15, lost her life during a horseback riding competition. The event took place at Fox Lee Farm in Venice, Florida. Surface was participating in a hunter-jumper event and was riding her trusty 12-year-old horse, Quacks, when the animal suddenly stumbled and fell while trying to clear jump number 5. The incident happened as Quacks had just successfully landed from a jump and was moving toward the next hurdle when the horse unexpectedly planted its left front hoof. This abrupt action caused the animal to lean significantly to its left, causing Surface to be thrown forward and off the horse entirely. Tragically, the horse continued falling in the same direction, ultimately landing on top of the rider's head as she laid on the ground. Immediate first aid was provided by employees at Fox Lee Farm and others on the scene until the Sarasota County Fire Rescue got to the scene. Surface was then transported to the Sarasota Memorial Hospital Venice campus, where she was soon pronounced dead. This devastating accident sheds light on the risks associated with horseback riding. A 2021 study by Ohio State University revealed that a significant number of riders, approximately 81%, have experienced injuries during their careers, with 21% meeting serious injuries. Moreover, horse-related injuries often involve head wounds, accounting for 10% to 30% of all similar injuries, and a striking 60 to 70% of horse-related deaths result from head injuries. Equestrian sports are notably associated with sports-related traumatic brain injuries among adult riders in the United States. Hannah Surface, who had a huge passion for horses, had been involved with them throughout her whole life. She transitioned to riding and showing horses in the 4th grade after mainly participating in gymnastics. Her dedication was clear as she diligently cared for her animals on her family farm in Webster. She practiced riding constantly and still managed to balance her homeschooling work. In addition to her equestrian pursuits, she engaged in extracurricular activities within the Sumter County School District and was a beloved member of the Wildwood Middle High School track team. Surface's commitment to riding was unwavering, and she had recently competed in the Winter 2022 circuit at the World Equestrian Center in Ocala. Her passion, determination, and coachability set her apart from her peers, fueling her desire to continue her equestrian journey and gain more knowledge in the field. 2. Red Diamond Rattlesnake. In August 2023, a woman was outside of her mother's Wildomar, California home when she was suddenly bitten by a red diamond rattlesnake. The woman, who has been identified as Tonya, was approaching her mom's residence on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday afternoon when the snake struck, targeting her toe. The immediate aftermath was marked by a massive amount of pain and swelling, and she was quickly rushed to the hospital. Her mother, Denise Silva, explained that Tonya had shaken her foot a bit after the snake's bite, causing the creature to retreat. Initially, they were unsure if it was a venomous rattlesnake or a non-venomous species, and this only added to the heightened anxiety of the situation. Silva's grandson played a crucial role in keeping the responsible snake at bay until the arrival of Ryan Jessup from Ryan's Rattlesnake Rescue. Jessup noted that rattlesnakes are typically calm creatures that only strike when they feel threatened. In this case, the snake might have been on the defensive thanks to an existing injury and was likely seeking shade and relief from the heat near the house. Jessup emphasized the importance of respecting snakes, keeping a safe distance, and never trying to handle them without professional help. He explained to local news station KTLA that, particularly in hot weather, snakes tend to seek shade and water wherever they can. Before Tonya was taken to the hospital, her family improvised a tourniquet using rubber bands, a practice that experts strongly discourage. But Jessup clarified that such a tourniquet could trap venom in one spot, potentially leading to severe consequences like the loss of a limb or tissue and nerve damage. Tim Daly from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife echoed the need for immediate medical attention in the event of a bite. He advised removing rings and watches from the bite area as soon as possible. There have been no recent updates on this story, but Tonya likely survived the snake bite, considering the fast response of her loved ones. Overall, the incident stands as a reminder of how a normal day can quickly turn into a dangerous situation when dealing with wildlife. 1. Buzz. In May 2023, what started as a family photo shoot in the peaceful Buckeye Valley region of Arizona took a horrifying turn when a mother was stung by bees over 75 times. During the frenzy, she was trying to shield her 2 children from the sudden swarm. The mother, whose identity has not been disclosed, displayed immense bravery in the face of this danger. The family was minding their own business, capturing outdoor pictures, when they were unexpectedly attacked by the swarm of bees, as reported by the Arizona Fire and Medical Authority in a harrowing Facebook post. Recognizing the immediate threat, the mother quickly placed her 2 children inside their nearby SUV. The sudden movement unfortunately made her the primary target of the bee attack. Her quick thinking and selfless actions spared her kids from the aggressive bee stings, demonstrating her dedication to their safety. A 911 call was placed by the woman's mother, who desperately pleaded for help as the attack unfolded. On the phone with the dispatcher, the woman's mom said, please hurry. My daughter can't get into the car. She's being attacked by bees." Responding fast, the City of Buckeye Fire Department sent firefighters out to the scene. They safely removed the children from the car by applying foam to the SUV. Video released by the Arizona Fire and Medical Authority showcased the responders dousing the vehicle with foam as they carefully carried one of the kids to the fire truck. Remarkably, both children were rescued without any injuries. The mother, though, had to be hospitalized thanks to the extensive bee stings. Luckily, she's since recovered, according to the agency. This incident reminds us of the potential dangers posed by bees and the importance of knowing how to respond correctly if ever confronted by a swarm. Fire officials emphasized the significance of seeking refuge in a secure location as the primary course of action when facing similar attacks. If escaping to a safe place is not possible, while shielding their face and seek the closest shelter. It's also crucial to avoid going into water and to refrain from trying to engage or fight the bees, since this can exacerbate the situation.
Thanks for watching. Would you rather find home surveillance footage of a stranger looking through your windows at 3 in the morning, or be the victim of a hit-and-run driver who never gets caught? Let us know in the comments below.